Now it's time for Open House, sponsored by Pyramid Heating and Cooling.
You know, when it comes to designing homes, especially something that's efficient, there's one person I lean on. Emily Mottram, Mottram Architecture. Welcome to Around the House Northwest, my friend.
Hey, Eric, it is great to see you. It's great to be here again. I love coming on and joining. Obviously, this is a topic that I care a lot about, that you care a lot about. So it's always fun to talk a little building science and energy efficiency.
Absolutely. And you know, you're up on the other Portland side of the country in Maine. And out here, it's something that's, getting more and more press on building like net zero and energy efficient homes because, quite frankly, it's getting much more expensive to not do that. And I thought, why not just get you on to talk kind of the basics of someone's going to design a home that's efficient? Where should they start?
Yeah, for sure. And I build in the Northeast, so we're obviously the opposite. We're trying to keep the cold out and doing all that stuff. But general physics of building is the same as long as you know which direction the weather is affecting your buildings. And I've actually been doing a bunch more training in some other climate zones other than my own. And there are things that are really important for people kind of in each climate zone. So for us up here in the Northeast, we're trying to do some insulation. But the first thing I tell people is definitely if you don't do a really good job with your water control layer, right? So that's your Tyvek, Typar, zip system, whatever you're using on the outside, and you don't know how your details and your tape or your flashing around your windows work, you might as well not work on any of the rest of it, right? That's the first thing for building an efficient home is really durability, right? We want to talk about that. And most people know that. And they think they're getting that. But what I want to highlight for owners or for younger architects or builders joining the field is our building products that we have available to us now on the market are already asking you to do better building science, right? We've got tighter materials. Just switching from the old way of building with boards to plywood made our buildings tighter, right? And so I always try to ask my clients or my builders or my architects or whatever to understand what you're asking your material to do, right? That's the first thing that you need to know. What are you asking it to do? If you're asking it to keep the water out, then how is it keeping the water out? Water is the enemy of all of our buildings. And I think every building professional ever understands that. And where the water comes from is different. You're in the Pacific Northwest, you get a lot of rain. We got a lot of snow. There are dry parts of the country where the moisture might be coming from the people inside and the air conditioning, so that's kind of the general basics of building an efficient home is where's the water and what am I doing with the products that are part of it to control the water.
And I've noticed too, one of the biggest mistakes that I see out on job sites today are people not understanding how it works and using maybe too many vapor barriers and creating more problems just because they think more is better.
Yeah. Or I had a project where we called for a certain product on that. And so up here in the Northeast, I love a good double stud wall, but we know our sheathing is going to get a little bit wet during our coldest times of the year. And they delivered Zip System, which is a perfectly acceptable product in lots of scenarios that I just personally wouldn't use on the outside of a double stud wall because it's a little bit more susceptible to, if it gets wet, can it break down? And so the builder had it delivered to the site, and the client, thankfully, is really understood the drawings. And she called me up and she said, "Hey, this is what they delivered. Is that okay?" And I said, "Oh, no, I don't think that's what we want to use in this scenario. And here's why." And she said, "Okay, I'll let them know." And the builder said, "Well, our lumber or our supplier said this is a superior product. So this is what we're going to use." And although I appreciate that, and it is a superior product in certain applications, for this application, it wasn't the right one. And I totally agree with you. Is like too many vapor barriers or on the wrong way or lapped in the wrong direction. Like it makes a difference which direction you tape all the things together. So you see that a lot is you think you're doing the right thing and then you realize, oh, there could be some kind of failure in your system just because it's either not the right product or not installed in the right area. Or, people say vapor barriers and they assume product.
Right.
But if we're really trying to do some kind of vapor control, we're talking about a layer, which is usually made up of multiple products in part of a system. And so I 100% agree when you're thinking about it, what's the system doing and how do all those pieces work together?
Exactly. And that's tough. I mean, it's tough. Like, great example. Last weekend, I was working on my house here, and I've got that 1977 house, and I've got 15-pound felt nailed to the studs with T111 siding over the top with, 1977 R11 insulation in there that's probably about R6 right now just because of what it is. And I tore the T111 off because I'm doing a rain screen and stuff on here, so I got a whole new system that I'm doing and putting in rock wool and stuff and really trying to make that as best I can with a 2x4. But to be honest, it was amazing to find how much black insulation of where all the air leakage was in these weird areas that I wouldn't have expected that insulation had just been a filter over, 40 plus years.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing to do. And I'm glad you brought this up because we're talking about renovations and that's kind of the next new thing, right? Because mortgage rates are really high and, people are sticking around, staying in their homes, doing more renovation work, concerned about energy costs. And so renovations are always challenging, but when you're doing a walkthrough with clients, it's fun to show them the sort of dirty fiberglass, right? That you pull out of the box sill or band joist, or depending on what part of the country, what you call that, your rim joist. And you pull it out and it's just filtered and say, yeah, this insulation works really great when there's no air movement. But this is one of the leakiest places in your house and you see air movement. And I also usually say, cobwebs don't mean that you're not good at cleaning your house. They just mean you have air leakage, right? The cobwebs appear wherever you have air leakage. So you just kind of go around and look for all the cobwebs, and wherever they are, that's where you've got air leakage in your house. And that makes people feel good about being able to, find those things in their houses. Yeah. Now, it's not always the biggest indicator of where you could have a problem with your house, right? I don't know how much manufactured housing you have there, but a lot of times when they put them together, they don't seal the two pieces together. And so you could have a convective loop between your basement or under your house and your attic. And that can lead to a lot of heat loss and air movement where you wouldn't see a cobweb, but it's still creating an issue. So I do encourage people, if you have an existing house and you're planning a renovation, have an energy audit done first.
Right.
Tells you so much about how your house is constructed and allows you to pick away a little bit at a time as to what makes sense, right? Because this renovation thing is, people always say, well, if I can't do all of this, maybe I shouldn't do anything at all. And it's like, no, there's a time and a place to make little improvements to our houses over time. Right now, you're taking something apart because you wanted to do something, or maybe you needed to replace the T111. Great time to do it.
Yeah, and it works out well that way. It works out well. Are there any other things that you can give for quick tips, people, Emily, to really think about before they do that renovation and, maybe even build that new house right now, even though there's probably a lot more renovations going on these days?
Yeah, so for renovation, I would definitely say when something is at the end of its usable life, that is when you have the best opportunity to make an improvement. Sort of like you're doing, Eric, you're taking the T111 siding off. So you said, I can use this opportunity to add exterior insulation to my project. Don't just take your siding off to add insulation or blow it in your walls because, it's only 5 years old, but you want to improve the efficiency. That's probably not the best time to do it. So there are good times to make improvements, and that's usually when some bigger part of your project is at the end of its usable life. The roof, the siding, whatever. So for renovation projects, and, air sealing is always the first and best thing that you can do in a renovation project. Yeah. For new construction clients, definitely thinking about how you can minimize your impact on where you're building, because every project site is a little microclimate, right? So we're affecting our microclimate. And for also when you're doing that is how much space do you really need, right? What are you looking for? So plan for the 99% of the time, not the 1% of the time. And sometimes cutting out square footage makes your building more complicated, and that's the wrong thing to do. So even though I'm encouraging people to build smaller footprints, only build what you need, if you make the structure more complicated, you make renovation harder for yourself in 20 to 30 years or harder for the next owner. So think about really simple forms, smaller, build only what you need, and really have an active goal of understanding your impact on the site that you're building on. Book.
Nice. Emily, how do people track you down?
Oh, they can find me in a lot of different ways. I have been incredibly busy, so the social media has been a little bit lacking, but you can find me on Instagram at Mottram, ARCH, or also on LinkedIn, Emily Mottram. You can reach out to me, info at mottраmarc.com. That'll get you to our team. You can find my website, which will also have a link to the podcast and a link to BS and Beer, which we do on the first Thursday of every month, where we talk about building science stuff that's applicable all over the country. And my website is www.mottраmarch.com.
Emily Mottram, thanks for coming on today. I can't wait for next time.